Hello, welcome back to Blender Sushi Live Nodding. In this episode, I'm gonna share with you my my workflow that I created recently. Basically, I try to pass this stroke data from iPad and pencil from my iPad. I'm using this app called ArtRage, and this is the Mac OS version of the app. This is the older version, I think version 3.5 Pro. Their latest is ArtRage 5, I think. It's based. This app was made by a company in New Zealand somewhere. But basically, I really like this app for like a 2D kind of painting because it has a lot of really cool tool and very natural kind of brush. Um, so basically, I'm trying to export out the data from Apple Pencil, and I've been looking for an app that's able to do this. And apparently, I remember ArtRage actually allows user to export out script that you can record while painting or drawing, and then you can export it as a script, and then you can play it back in the macOS version of the app. And the script file looks something like this. Um, so the app, the script itself is kind of human readable, except for this byte part that's kind of like a machine language. But the bottom part is more or less like a XML, like a markup language that you can read and parse using Python. So I actually give this a try, and yeah, so basically from this ArtRage artworks that I generate in using the iPad, I'm getting these strokes and etc. And I managed to turn it into Blender 3D artwork. So this is how it looks like. I have two examples. The first one, if I hide this one. So the first one I tried is by using circle, and it looks like something like this. So it's just like a instancing of circles over the strokes, and I actually managed to get the data of the pressure of the Apple Pencil, and that's why I get this kind of like ink. It's more like a natural kind of look. That's with instancing in Sverchok. So you see there's like 1113 circles being instanced over the stroke, but the other one is actually quite more interesting because it's this is if I turn off the randomization. So I get these strokes that's actually perfectly matching the ArtRage artwork. So you look at this one and then compare to this one, it's exactly matching. And yeah, this is like the basics. You can transfer a stroke from an app using like iPad Pro, even though it's not like a common kind of workflow, I know, because ideally you just use Blender and then grease pencil and a Wacom tablet or stylus, for example, and you just draw on in Blender. So that's um, the most ideal and the most common workflow. But because I sometimes I work using my iPad Pro and pencil, just doing drawings and doodling, so that's why I I always want to do this. And I'm not a programmer per se, but I learn Python here and there, and so I want to show you the workflow exactly. So like I said, I actually have interest with typography and lettering. So this is my notes on it, and I've been thinking a lot about whether typography can be more like a 2.5D or 3D. I know that some graphic designers out there already experiment with this, but I want to do it using Blender really. And grease pencil strokes and freestyle are really powerful. But at the moment, grease pencil doesn't really talk to Blender freestyle renderer. But I really like freestyle because it has like a stroke and you can control the thick and thin strokes. You can even render curve as a stroke, and then you can control the thickness somewhat with freestyle. But sometimes freestyle is not very obvious because freestyle, until you render, you don't see your stroke. So I really kind of want to incorporate everything that I have. iPad Pro doesn't have Blender apps, so I cannot use Blender in it. Although I can use another app, like AstroPad or Duet app that can transfer the Apple Pencil, but that's like another story. Really, uh, ArtRage app is one of those apps that can export the data. That's what I'm most interested in. So if I try to open the script, I'll just play one of the script. I'll show you what's happening. This is something that I found really interesting. I'll accelerate the playback. So yeah, this is the stroke that I did using iPad Pro and Apple Pencil. So every stroke is really, really accurate, and I can have like pressure sensitive. It records everything, including the, I delete the whole canvas and then kind of start again from beginning, and I write this just really simple handwriting of blend. So this is the one that get recorded, and then I export it out to Dropbox, and this is the script what you see on the right. It has a bit of like a metadata. This thing is not important. Basically, I really want to access the data such as the location here. You see the location, and then there's a pressure, and there's other like tilt and rotate and reverse or ink. I don't know what's the rest of them, but there's this weight also, like a type for the timing, the durations. The Apple Pencil stays on that point. But this XY is really the data that I really want to access using Python. I'll take you to the whole steps. Yeah, basically from this AR script, which is ArtRage script, I delete some of them, and I just get the stroke event and stroke header. That's what I'm interested in. So I save it as a new file. I save it as XML, and I just add this my own tag here. So XML works with a kind of like a tagging. So you get all these like hundreds, 1,000 lines of data, but each one of them is within a tag like this. So stroke events and stroke header can be accessed using Python, and apparently it's not super simple, but it's actually not that particularly not complex at all actually. So I'm using Python. This is Python 3. I'm using Pineapple app because Pineapple app is working kind of like Jupyter Notebook for Python, so this is my script. I'm using this module called XML elementary, etc. But basically I'm accessing the data, and I'm testing it with Python as well before I switch to Blender, and using Sverchok to do everything else. I'm testing it with Python, so I start to write this, and then I look on the internet. My Python script will be like super ugly, I think, but it works really. And so I get to the root of all the tags. The tags here is more like if you think of it like a tree, and you can kind of turn it into dictionary or list. So I'm getting the root, I'm getting the list of all the data, and apparently, so I managed to get the tail of the tag, and this is all the data. And then from that data, I'm stripping and cleaning up the data using this lstrip, rstrip function model in Python, and then finally I get to this like lines, every lines that I really needed, like all this weight and the location and pressure. So I only need the location and pressure at the moment. So continue on. I'm using this splitting of data, and this is that they call this data parsing. So whenever you exporting importing data, you need to parse the data so you get to the value that you actually really need. So I managed to get the value X and Y. I know that I can use the XY in Blender. The X and Y data is pretty big here. The number is pretty big, and also they are integer. There is no negative value. That's very common in a lot of apps. So I need to kind of scale this by 100 times in Blender at some point. So this is the XY data, and I also managed to get to the pressure data here. So fast forward, and I know that it's gonna work. I tried it like just copying, pasting this all these values into Blender, and I tested with Sverchok, and everything actually works nicely. The nice thing about Sverchok and the way I could my brain could kind of click with it, because Sverchok work with lists. It doesn't care too much about data type and stuff. Animation nodes actually care about data type. Sverchok doesn't. Sverchok is just like list, an array of lists. It's very simple data format that I can just pipe it into Sverchok format. Yeah, so I get this data, and I actually managed to turn it into Sverchok nodes, script nodes. The script nodes look something like this. So this is basically I just copy paste the data that I type in the pineapple. This is all Python script. I only get the one that I need, and I could like tidy up all this data, turn it into function, etc. But I just leave it like this. This is Sverchok script node. Yeah, this is the final node. This looks like this. Don't worry about the matrices. It does nothing. Just the output is like the points and the pressures. That's the one that's coming from ArtRage. This is script node. I just type in the in and out. Don't worry about that. This is the actual Python code. It's sourcing my files, ArtRage files, as XML, and then parse everything through all this process. Finally, I get the output, and the output is exactly what type of data that Sverchok understands. And so yeah, as a result, I get this. This is a live data actually. If I kind of look at all the data, remember at some point I actually make a mistake in ArtRage and draw this random strokes. It's actually coming with it. It comes with it, and I just need to slice the data and just get the one I need. So this is blend data. This is the points data. I can just plug it into polyline viewer, and I get a curve, and then this is actually a curve data in Blender. I'm using this vector multiply scalar, just divide it by multiply it by 0.01, so it's like 100 times smaller. Currently I'm looking from the bottom part, because from the top part it looks something like this. See, it comes into Blender like upside down like this, but I need to look at it from the bottom, because that's how normally like a 2D app works, X and Y, you know. Other 3D apps that I could think of is like Flash or processing. It's this is the X and this is the Y going down, but in 3D packages usually it's like this, the coordinates. So anyway, yeah, it does comes to Blender, and it's become like a I can turn it into a volume kind of artwork. This is the most basic thing that I could think of, simply by turning it into like a 3D strokes. But there's a lot. There's a lot of graphic design books that's dealing with this. Actually, like this is a good example from book titled Botanical Graphics. Yeah, this gives you some kind of ideas. You can of course generate type, like a 3D type, in many like unlimited variations, and I would really want to try this using Blender, or I don't know. Of course you can collect real objects like leaves, but you know, you want to digitize it at some point. So this is my drawing using ArtRage, and this is maybe for the future ideas, just using kanji, I don't know. But anyway, maybe because of my graphic design background, I'm interested into this kind of thing. If you're doing a 3D, you know, 3D artists normally, like, they care about the materials. For example, like it looks like metal, make it looks like a water, liquid, or fire, or glass. all like a really high realistic 3D stuff, but I think the form, I like the basic form, like strokes and shapes. So I really want to experiment further with this. Hopefully I'll get to something interesting. Mm, Other than that, it's pretty, everything else is pretty much um, open for experimentation. So this is polyline viewer. Really, I just tested with some, you know, like randomized. This is not like particularly interesting. Just randomize the vertices of the mesh. But this, to think about it, this comes from this one day I was like doodling on the iPad, you know, using Apple Pencil, and I get these really nice strokes in an app called ArtRage, and then I bring it into my laptop computer and further work with the data. That's the thing with data. Actually, what I really want. I wrote down in here. In the future, okay, 3D and tilt brush. Tilt brush. If you have, I don't know, Oculus Rift or HTC 3D Vive. Um, in the future, really, like you can work in 3D space. So instead of like having like a stylus and Wacom tablet, or you know, like, or iPad Pro and Apple Pencil, instead of working in 2D, you work in 3D, and you are free to move your body, arm, and you can record everything. I really want to. At the moment, I don't have access to all those, but I really want. I wish I have, and then you can work, bring it into Unity or Blender, and then actually works in 3D, and then turn those strokes, like a 3D strokes, into like a form that's maybe beautiful. Maybe you can print out, and maybe you can, I don't know, make like interesting stuff. Actually, if you look at Japanese artist named Goro, he likes to draw robots and stuff, but he also start making a narrative in 3D using strokes. So I just type it in. So yeah, that's maybe if you know anyone, if you that have access to this, maybe give it a try. I want to see 3D data. I want to do like a graffiti or like a brush writing in 3D. Maybe I should find someone who has access to all this. But anyway, for now it's just you know, very basics. Just ArtRage, Apple Pencil, iPad, and try to bring it into Blender. Really, ideally, Grease Pencil and Freestyle should work. Grease Pencil, of course, is being developed currently, and we will probably get more expressive line. At the moment, you get like you can display like a volume, but this is like very cool. Volume currently looks like this, and you can, I think you can use sketching. Oh, Blender just crashes. It's my computer, don't worry about it. But anyway, Blender Grease Pencil will get better and even more interesting in the future, I believe. And if you incorporate like a add-on like Sverchok, and you have access to the stroke data and then pressure data, you can create a lot of interesting things very easily. So that's actually my main point, and all this my experiment, I know, with Python, I think will pay off. I think I will share the script with you. Yeah, but anyway, that's the whole process. Like I said, I'm not a programmer, but I found that knowing a little bit of coding helps a lot. And if you actually can use noding like in Sverchok and Blender, is like really powerful tool sets you can have. Okay, that's pretty much it. Maybe, hopefully this video is useful for all of you. Let me know if you have any suggestion, feedbacks in the comment section below. Thanks again for tuning in. I'll see you in the next video.